Hey guys, it's me yet again. I wanted to take one more dive, a far deeper dive, into the question of both Aasimar and whether or not the creatures slash beings being featured in the trailer are Aasimar. And there are two instances of questions we could pose here, specifically for the being who looks to be a flaming fist soldier flying downwards with tattered black feathered wings. And then the instance of the being that you encounter seemingly in a different plane, which I described as a Deva. I still think that's right. But first, let me explain my reasoning why I think neither of these are Aasimar. So, in the first instance, we have this flaming fist with tattered black wings. Okay. He looks incredibly human. Now, yes, I've heard the objection before, and it is possible that Aasimar can look almost entirely human. However, you have to observe the art style of Lorien here, because tieflings can look almost entirely human too. And yet when we look in the game at the tiefling models, there's not a single one that looks remotely human. All of them have very devilish lower planar features. Remember, tieflings are descendants of lower planar beings, and the ones in Baldur's Gate 3 absolutely reflect that. They have horns, they have glowing eyes of different colors, they have tails, they have a skin tone which is mostly reminiscent of what you would associate with devils and so on and so forth. Therefore, the logic here is that if there were in fact Aasimar present in the game, and they're not mentioned in the player's handbook, so this is kind of a really iffy situation as to whether or not they're going to appear at all, they almost certainly wouldn't look like a standard human being, which is what that flaming fist soldier looks like. Now, there are some weird artifacts, if you look at the different frames, that suggest a kind of glowing a little bit, but you don't really see any of the features you would associate with Aasimar, upper planar features, extra planar features, glowing eyes, a kind of glowing, iridescent skin, essentially angelic features, the opposite of what you would expect in a tiefling, which I think, if Lorien were to implement Aasimar in the game, they would absolutely apply to Aasimar. They need to look different from your standard human, in the same way that tieflings in Baldur's Gate 3 are such that you cannot mistake them for humans at all. There's a further question, of course. This particular flaming fist soldier has these tattered black wings, and we know, at least in theory, that fallen Aasimar, which is a type of Aasimar, an evil Aasimar, as it were, sometimes have tattered black wings. However, they don't have them as a regularity. They use them briefly. They can draw upon them, just like the subrace of Aasimar, Protector Aasimar, can do. So it's worth looking at the actual description in order to dispel the notion that this is an Aasimar. So Fallen Aasimar has the ability to produce what is called the Necrotic Shroud. And when it does this, you will see a certain projection of wings. And it states, starting at 3rd level, you can use your actions to unleash divine energy within yourself, causing your eyes to turn into pools of darkness, which we don't see, by the way, in this flaming fist, and 2 skeletal, I wouldn't describe them as skeletal, ghostly, flightless wings to sprout from your back. So I would argue these tattered black wings look much more physical than they do ghostly, and as it states here, they are not functional for the Aasimar in terms of flight, so there's something else going on here. He does not look like an Aasimar, and yes, as I said, I'm aware, Aasimar can look like humans, but in this case we have to assume that Lorien would apply the same standards to Aasimar characters that they would to tieflings, namely making them very distinct looking, very, very clear that they are from the lower planes or upper planes, respectively, based on their heritage. We don't see that here. What we do see, though, is something very interesting, and that is a kind of inky black darkness that seems to emerge when this flaming fist soldier lands. Who knows what it is, but it's very mysterious. We don't know what's going on here. I don't think we can definitively say, quite possibly it's a spell or a curse, but one thing I'm pretty sure about is that this is not an Aasimar. And I also don't think it's a fallen Aasimar for the reasons I cited. The wings do not resemble the wings that you would find, which are more the invocation of a power and ability rather than a feature. Then we have the instance of what I believe to be a Deva, and in this case, I'm almost certain it is truly an angelic being as opposed to an Aasimar, because actually, as I said, Aasimar don't have wings. They historically never had them. Sometimes they would have vestigial wings, so fluff, that's reminiscent of angels and other upper planar beings. But we see here full, organic, proper wings that are used in flight as part of the body of this individual. And that's just not something that Aasimar have. As I said, there are types of Aasimar, such as the Protector Aasimar, that can sprout ethereal wings. And let's read the description. Starting at 3rd level, you can use your action to unleash the divine energy within yourself, causing your eyes to glimmer, and 2 luminous, incorporeal wings to sprout from your back. Now, I would suggest that these wings are neither incorporeal nor luminous. They're simply feathered wings of the sort you would associate with angelic beings. And on top of that, the armor, which is very clearly religious armor, you can see the symbology there, doesn't look to me like it would just be an Aasimar. Maybe it's some kind of half-angel, possibly, but I do think it's some type of Deva ultimately. If we were to see Aasimar, I think they would be the counterpart to the Tiefling. So whereas the Tiefling immediately reminds us of devils and possibly things infernal and lower planar, we would look at Aasimar and say, wow, this being is descended from angels. They would have an almost holy appearance. It would be reflected in their skin tone. They might have glowing eyes, but not the glowing infernal eyes of a Tiefling, but rather reflective of the upper planes. Their hair color might reflect this as well. There would be subtle and not so subtle signs that they are very distinct from human beings, and we simply don't see that in either the trailer or in any of the characters that have been shown to us thus far. All of that said, I would absolutely love to see Aasimar in the game properly implemented, but since they're not part of the official Player's Handbook races, it seems unlikely. At best, I think we might be able to hope for a mod that introduces them, but then there's the further complication of how they would be integrated into the dialogue, and that's a very difficult undertaking indeed, because as you know, all the races, all the classes have a lot of dialogue-based interaction, and I don't know if you could replicate that in a mod. But as they say, hope springs eternal, and I still secretly hope that Aasimar are in fact added by full release. We have no idea if that will be the case, but I certainly hope so. I think in general, more difficult to make races, like the Dragonborn, and additional races, like the Aasimar, if they are added, we will not find anything out about them until full release, so we'll have to be patient. For the record, I am somewhat hopeful that half-orcs might be added with patch 9, given what was shown in the trailer, but I could be wrong about that. I certainly hope so. I would love to play a half-orc paladin to give it a try. Anyway, wanted to cover this one last time, take a little bit of a deeper dive into why I think, in this case, it's just a human under the effect of some dark spell, perhaps, and in the case of what I believe to be a Deva, that it's almost certainly not an Aasimar. But as always, I do thank you for watching, and if you can leave a like, share, comment, subscribe, it really helped me out. Thanks for tuning in again, and I'll check you out next time. Take care.